Good afternoon. My name is Joanne Keane, CEO of LIA. I'm delighted to be joined today by Rafe Benson, co-founder of online pension and investment advisor Moneycube.ie and Niall Brennan, Associate Director of Behaviour Attitudes, Ireland's largest independent market research company. LIA are very proud to have participated in Pensions Awareness Week for a second consecutive year, and we see the event as an invaluable opportunity to promote awareness about the importance of retirement planning. In this session, Behaviour Attitudes will be presenting the outputs of market research that was recently conducted into pensions in Ireland and what consumers want from their pension advisor. There is 1 hour CPD for this session. The code will be confirmed at the end. And I'm looking forward to seeing the results, and I know that you will find the outputs of same to be very informative, thought-provoking and insightful, and will give you a real invaluable insight into the thoughts of your consumer audience. As you know, LIA is the Centre of Excellence for the Education and Development of Finance Professionals. And we're dedicated to enabling and promoting the highest quality standards in financial advisory practice. And I'm sure we will see within the presentation the importance of the professional qualifications that you guys hold, such as CFP, RPA and QFA, and technical expertise that our programmes provide to both the consumer and the financial advisor. If you have any questions, please submit them using the Q&A function by selecting the 3 dots at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and we will answer these at the end. I will now hand you over to Rafe and Niall to present the outputs of the market research. I hope you find this 1 hour well worth investing your time in, and you can take from it some learnings that can assist you and your business. So firstly, Rafe is going to talk about Pensions Awareness Week and summarise the week's events. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Joanne. And it's lovely to be here. We got to Friday, so it's been a busy old week here on Pensions Awareness Week, and we didn't know it at the time, but it was a really good week to be out there talking about pensions, because I guess midweek we had this announcement about the state pension and the changes around, effectively the offer or the deal that if folk are going to defer taking the state pension for up to 5 years, then they'll be paid more when they do take it. I don't think I'll be taking that up myself, having run the numbers, but who knows, maybe that will prompt them to refine that a little bit, and I guess like so much around public policy and pensions, we kind of wait to see when it happens. But what it did do, and what Pensions Awareness Week is all about, is tabling this conversation about pensions, and in particular involving the people that we do pensions on, so people who actually benefit at the end from pensions, who are often absent from the conversation about pensions. And that's really why Pensions Awareness Week started 4 years ago now, initially by ourselves, Moneycube.ie, and with partners such as yourselves and others. It's kind of snowballed and grown bigger each year through a combination of face-to-face events when we're allowed, one-to-one consultations, online webinars such as this one, and for the general public, and speaking up in the media and having that conversation. And in particular this year we've had sessions on starting a pension. We had Dan Malone Financial, ourselves, Moneycube, and we shot it at the Aviva, so we had Aviva participating in that. We couldn't ignore what's happened in the markets this year, so we had a really good session that we recorded in Davy offices in Dawson Street, and we had voices from Davy, from Zurich Life, and again from yourselves, LIA. James Skehan, who teaches on the CFP module, and little old me, and then we also had a discussion around approaching retirement, which we've always found is one of the most important things, as anyone watching this will know, which involved Allen Retirement and Finance and Royal London Ireland, who I think on Monday coming are about to announce their ARF product, which is quite an interesting moment, a new entrant to the Irish marketplace for all of us, and we also had Paul Kenny, ex-pensions ombudsman, and now of the Retirement Planning Council of Ireland. And then we had a session all around kind of geared at people running businesses, so whether that's developing your employee value proposition and how you in a tight recruitment market, how you sell that to employees and develop a compelling proposition, particularly in an SME environment, how you compete with big corporates, all that kind of thing. We had voices from the Pensions Authority, great to actually put a face on some of these kind of regulatory bodies who who govern us. We had Brightwater Group, the executive search and recruitment business. We had other voices as well. So we
super lineup.
Yeah, we've had it. Well, I suppose what's interesting about it is like it's a unique place where it's not just one company releasing some data or commenting on it, but it's actually the industry as a whole getting together and bringing a consistent message, which is let's get aware of this, get informed, and kind of be quite action focused. And there's always something you can do to improve your pension position. It usually involves talking to a financial advisor, and that's in everyone's interest to attending today. So that's the kind of session we had. I do want to just mention some of the all of the partners that have supported us this year. I've mentioned a lot of them there, but also involved we had the head of the director of people at Lidl, who joined a really interesting discussion alongside Irish Life and Insurance Ireland around the gender pension gap. We had support from the Irish Association of Pension Funds, and we also had ISME and Parents and Brands. So, a whole cross-section of industry, advisors, regular people joining sessions and chipping in their questions, regulators and educational bodies as well. So it's been, a really good week. Had some great coverage in RTE, Irish Times, Indo. We've been speaking up on local radio and so on. So we're pretty happy. I think this is the culmination. We're looking forward to some really interesting data.
And I think really this session is going to be, identifying where the opportunities lie for, our members, our students, and for the public, really. So I think it'll be really interesting now to hear what you guys have uncovered.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll dig in, I suppose, then, will we? Good to go.
That's good.
Yeah.
So look, this is delighted to present this research back to everyone on behalf, working with the LIA on this. Just in terms of, we'll start with just a bit of the methodology, just the approach that we went through for this research, just so we have a firm grounding before we kick on with the findings. It was an 8-question survey that covered a range of topics related to pensions based on different areas such as what holdings of pension products that people have, but also a lot of attitudinal and behavioural stuff too. So what's their planning around pension? What types of things have they actually done recently for preparing for retirement? And also a good section as well on their attitude towards financial advisors, what they're looking for from financial advisors, what's important. Some interesting findings there that we'll go through. In terms of the sample, it's over 1,000 individuals that we have in our sample. It's nationally representative. And the survey was completed online through our Acumen online panel. That means that the survey is quota controlled in terms of gender, age, socioeconomic status and region in the country. So we have a good spread from Dublin, Munster, Connacht Ulster as well. It's also weighted to population estimates, so it's in line with the CSO data, and really fresh off the press in terms of the fieldwork was conducted just late August, early September. So really up-to-date information here we're going to be looking at today.
Brilliant.
And I think the CPCC put out some data kind of just after us, but I was interested to see our sample size was kind of 33% higher, so we've thrown the net a little wider, which supports the robustness of the data.
Absolutely, and that national representative sample is really important, just to kind of get that full view of the entire country and how it's playing out across different areas.
Brilliant.
So this is just an example of the profile. Good balance of male and female, as you'd expect, in line with CSO data. Spread of ages from 16 to 24. To empty nesters over 65. Split of social class, so what we have is ABC1, which is more white collar, C2DE, more blue collar workers in terms of the definition there. As I mentioned, the spread of across regions from Dublin, rest of Leinster, Munster and Ulster Connacht. So let's jump into the research results in detail now. And let's start, I suppose, with just in terms of the most obvious question. What's the holdings that people have of various pension products? So in terms of the overall population, over half, about 57%, hold at least one pension product, that either being an occupational pension, a public sector pension or a privately held pension. So at least nearly over half hold at least one of them. Males and females, there is a difference here, as Ralph alluded to earlier, in terms of the gender pension gap. Males and females, they are as likely as each other to receive a public sector pension, but men are more likely to have an occupational pension, so that coming through their employer, or a private pension. So that seems to be the main area where there is a difference in between that gender gap in terms of pensions. There is a regional difference too. Dubliners are more likely to have a pension compared to those living outside of Dublin too. And there is a difference between that socio-economic breakdown as well, with your more white-collar workers, 2 and 3 of them having a pension compared to under half for blue-collar. So there is, as we can see, there are quite big differences across the population in terms of pension holdings, depending on different areas. What about behaviour then? What have people actually done in relation to planning around their pension? So the data you see here on the screen, this is specifically related to those who actually hold any pension product at the moment. So just put that in your mind. This is based on those who have a pension product. So as I mentioned, of those who currently have a pension product, over a third of them have sought advice from a financial advisor at some point, so 37%. However, when we look at the other areas, it's quite low, isn't it? Just over 1 in 4 have ever checked the current performance of their pension. So
incredible, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
to think that they wouldn't take ownership of it.
Exactly, it's something that they just have that's working in the background, but they don't seem to be paying a lot of attention to it. It's just working away, and you can see that there, just over 1 in 5 having calculated how much money they need per month in retirement. So there appears to be a real gap here between what people, their current self, and what they're actually going to need in their future life. And this is amongst people who actually have pensions, so it is quite low there.
So that's quite from the perspective of people like me who are advising clients. There, you've got a paying client there potentially who is kind of telling you they haven't performed those basic calculations, and yet they obviously at some level accept the need for a pension. I can see an opportunity there to be helping push up that 21% of who have calculated to a much higher number, with the obvious consequence being that you need to make some adjustments around how much you put in, or at least your client would have better peace of mind that they were on track.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's one other point from this side I think it's very interesting as well. Less than 1 in 5 of those who currently have a pension have actually checked what funds their pension is invested in. So looking under the hood and checking it. Now there is a bit of a difference here with the type of pension that people hold. Those with a private pension tend to be a bit more clued in. They're more likely to have sought advice from a financial advisor, and they're also more likely to have checked what funds their pension is actually invested in. So a bit more educated perhaps further along the way in terms of private pensions. Those with public sector pensions tend to be really low down in terms of their scores really across the board in these different areas. So what about the other side of it then? Those who those who do not have a pension. Okay, so what type of behaviours have they taken, if any, in terms of their planning for retirement? And as you can see, the scores are quite low here again. So amongst those who do not currently have a pension, only 1 in 10 have calculated how much money they need per month in retirement. So 90% of people haven't actually thought about that, how much I'm actually going to need per month in retirement. And I suppose only 1 in 20 of people who do not currently have a pension have sought advice on pensions from a financial advisor, which is again really low, only 5%. With the same number, 5% having discussed retirement options with their workplace at some point. So,
and this is an opportunity, or not, or are they going to engage?
It seems to me like this is almost a watch out for people in our business, in the sense that it's a truism, isn't it, that we've got this 1 million people odd in Ireland who don't have pensions and so on, but actually our total available market might be 1 million, but the actual market that is listening to us and going to say yes to something could be a good amount smaller. And one of the best things we can do is probably figure out who's just disengaged, and they might. I think you've got some numbers later now that talk about they're worried about it, but they're not sufficiently worried about it to do any of the things that are on this slide, calculate what that might mean. Engage someone like me to take advice or whatever. So there's a disconnect between being worried about it, but actually being prepared to make any day-to-day sacrifices, or actually sign up to anything that would get things underway.
No, absolutely. This is a busy slide. I'm just going to point out some key features on it just for kind of to pull out some data here. The key takeaways from this slide is that overall, when we look at those who are over 50 years of age, they are more likely to have sought advice from a financial advisor at some point, which I suppose is unsurprising. Nearly a third of those, this is looking at the total population, have sought advice from a financial advisor. With checking of the performance of a pension peaking amongst that 50 to 64 age cohort. So I maybe haven't paid enough attention to it up to then. I'm starting to worry, do I actually have enough in it? So we do see a peak then in that age group, 50 to 64, where people start to pay a bit more attention.
I can attest to that. That's me. I'm in that category.
Jump in to check the performance. How well has it actually done? And over half the population have done none of these pension planning behaviours before the age of 50.
God.
Which is quite incredible. There is a large part of people who just haven't considered it. They're not able to empathise perhaps with their future self and the needs of their future self. So there is that disconnect.
So when they're getting less and less time to do something about it in their working life.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I guess advisors can only fight the tide so much there as well. There's a clear steer, isn't there? That there's who actually wants to have this conversation, and probably we've all experienced talking to someone under the age of 24. I would say higher. In fact, you're usually it often falls on people just don't want to talk about it. They've got other demands on their money,
prices.
Miles away from them.
We'll come to that later. Obviously, there's these points where there's lots of competing costs. This is a specific cut, and this is looking, I suppose, at full-time employees specifically. Okay, so what you see in the orange horizontal bar chart here is these full-time employees who have any pension product, and in the red horizontal bars you see full-time employees with no pension product. Right. Okay, and what's their planning like? So what you can see, those full-time employees who hold any pension product, about a third of them have sought advice on a pension from a financial advisor. Right. There is 7% though, when we look at that, we have full-time employees with no pension who've actually never done that. So again, it's not something that's happening. And when we look further around, just another point there, just to point out, the one with the black outline around it, discuss my retirement options with my workplace. Even amongst those who have a pension with their employer, those are full-time employed, only 1 in 5 have discussed their retirement options with their workplace. And when we look at the people who do not have a pension but are employed full-time, only 1 in 10 have discussed retirement options with the workplace. So I suppose this is really highlighting that it's not something that's being talked about. It's not something that's really perhaps spoken about, perhaps from the employer's point of view. It's something they could push more to have these more proactive discussions with employees about to think about retirement and put a plan in place. But this indicates it's currently quite muted at the moment in many years.
And what could you guys kind of be doing about that, or is there something
Yeah, I mean, kind of employee engagement, as I say, we just had a whole separate discussion on this earlier in the week as part of the week, but it is definitely an area where the industry is probably not as sophisticated as it could be. I guess there's probably a difference as well here between there's the big corporate brokers who do the large corporates in the country, the Mercers, the Willis Towers Watsons of this world who have their own kind of business model, and then there's probably the wider advisory community. And I would say, here's a great opportunity, particularly this time of year. Everyone's thinking about ABCs and the tax deadline, all that kind of thing, where actually, perhaps we feel uncomfortable sitting in the lunchroom or whatever it is, or sending out those brochures and emails and whatnot. But actually, what the data is telling us is there's a bit of an open goal here in terms
missing
of
a trick maybe.
We're only reaching 1 in 5 of those people, and yet they've got a scheme in place. There's lots of untapped potential there, and the employer's already paying in. So I would say that's a really interesting one for anyone on this session who runs a corporate scheme.
And we come to this later. There's just another piece of data there. Of those full-time employees with no pension, 71% of them would like to know more about pensions, but just find it complicated to understand. So it does indicate.
I think there's a fear, isn't there, around it?
It's breaking down that and making it seem a bit more approachable, a bit more realistic. I suppose,
and it's been hard this last couple of years because suddenly everyone was remote and all the usual things that we did to engage with people and be in the office or for people are suddenly hard to do.
Okay, let's move on. So what about those who do not have a pension? What are the reasons? Why do they feel that they haven't made the move to get a pension? As I mentioned, 2 over 5 in the population do not have a pension, 43%. And what are the main reasons that they give? So of those who don't have a pension, 2 in 3 say that they can't afford it at the moment, that being the main reason why they don't do that, they have not started a pension. With this peaking amongst the young and pre-family age cohort, so the 35 to 49-year-olds in particular, and you got to remember at that age, a lot of competing costs. You have the creche, you have going back to school. This month costing a lot of money, more than other years. So a lot of expenses at that time, and that indicating, I suppose, why it's peaking and that affordability issue at that age. Interesting, I suppose, some things that come out here, as I said, a large proportion, 1 in 5 don't understand or find it complicated. Yeah. This is peaking amongst those 16 to 24. There are a third of them saying that they haven't started one yet because they don't understand it or find it complicated. And there's other things here coming through with that younger age group, in particular 16 to 24s, don't think that they need one. 1 in 10 people who don't have a pension currently don't feel that they need one. That's up to a quarter for that 16 to 24 age cohort. So again, maybe not having that longer term vision, but it is a barrier for them. But really the affordability issue is the big one there. That's pointing out as a reason for not having a pension. So as I said, I can't afford it at the moment. You can see they're highlighted in green just in the first line, that peaking amongst that 35 to 49 age cohort. Not as big an issue for those 25 to 34, 16 to 24, but it is still the leading reason why people don't. I
just wonder if they got in earlier, would they still manage the cost? Like if they got in, started it earlier, they'd still maybe absorb that cost even with those additional expenses of childcare or whatever.
Exactly, just that bit better planning, I suppose, and being able to think about that a few years down the road, that when it gets to this age, I may not be able to do that as easily. And then as I mentioned, 16, 24, peaking there with don't think I need one.
I think as well, just this is one of these pieces of information where the regional data sort of jumps out at you a bit, doesn't it? Like clearly in Dublin, there's seems to be greater sense that the state pension won't be enough. Yeah. Whereas perhaps out of the capital, that money goes further and so on. So I think if we dovetail that with some of what we're going to see about kind of regional take-up of pensions, one of the reasons might be actually the demand is fundamentally lower outside the capital because people feel that state pension is going to, rightly or wrongly, going to.
But that's their perception that it's going to go. Yeah, where in Dublin you can see it's 5%. They're way lower than the other ones. So that's a good call out that. Absolutely may be the case. So this is just the piece of a topic. We'll get into some attitudinal stages. So that we were looking at behaviour there, we were looking at what people that were doing around planning. We're kind of moving into more attitudinal areas here now. And the first being, many find pensions complicated to understand. To the question, I would like to know more about pensions, but I find it complicated to understand. Half the population feel this way about them. It's not something that they feel that's very easy to engage with. And it is something that many struggle with. And as I mentioned, specific cut of that, that's up to 71% when we look at those who work full-time and currently don't have a pension. They'd like to know more, but they just find it a complicated
thing. But there's a real educational piece here though, isn't there, in simplifying this for the consumer?
Yeah, that's got to be right. I think, our industry has moved from a model where, Irish people or people in Ireland were kind of less comfortable talking about money and kind of, it'll be fine. And the last 10 years, for all sorts of reasons, the scales fell from people's eyes and they realised, A, they need to get to grips with themselves. B, they're not prepared to be misled in quite the same way. Yeah. And there's just a general drive towards transparency, both regulatory, but also the fact that information is more widely available and so on. So I think, this sort of, as advisors, you're probably, in some ways we get harder questions than we used because it's less based on relationship and trust and more based on actually, well, prove it to me and this doesn't have to be complicated. Let's sit on the same side of the table and get to grips with it.
Here's your LIA plug now for qualifications and what
well, yeah, and it's about being comfortable in your professional knowledge, but it's also about how you get that across and we, don't use it as something to intimidate people, but use it as something to empower people.
Yeah.
Okay. So a few more of the attitudinal statements here. So we just follow the slide around just with the black boxes you can see there. So just the one in the middle that I want to go to first. Over 2 in 5 of the population are uncertain as to whether they will have sufficient money saved for retirement. So 42% unsure if they'll have enough money saved for retirement. And on the other side, we have half the population not knowing how much money they need each month in retirement. So not having that number of how much they're going to need for each week or each month when they do reach the retirement age. There are, I suppose, another part of the 2 and 5 already know, and they're at that point where they've accepted. They already know that they won't have sufficient money to save for retirement. With the same number, about 2 and 5 claiming, I suppose, stating that they believe they will need to work longer than they intend to due to an insufficient pension. So you kind of see that kind of reality kicking in, that peaking, as you can imagine, towards that group of 50, 64 that we were talking about.
But not necessarily taking action to correct it.
No, not in the younger ages.
Yeah.
There is that gap, I suppose, it's there. But just highlighting, there is those kind of attitudes towards retirement. I suppose there are some differences here again by age groups and some on gender, which is quite interesting. Nearly 2 and 3 of the 25 to 49 age cohort are open to hearing about pensions, but find it complicated to understand. So 66%, give or take, it's just an area they'd like to know more about, but they do find it a difficult area for themselves to navigate. So again, going back to that education piece. The reality, as I mentioned, of financial needs for retirement appears to set in around the young family cohorts. You kind of see this point here, we're around the middle of 47% where we have that highlight. I already know I won't have sufficient money saved for retirement. That kind of kicks in around that 35 plus age cohort, where younger age groups a bit more that hasn't kind of set in from that reality. So as I mentioned, nearly half realising at this point that they won't have enough money saved for retirement. And there is a difference here in terms of gender as well, popping up in the data. Males feel that they are more likely males feel that they are more likely to know about how much money they need each month in retirement compared to females. So again, that being a difference between the genders in that one. And I suppose you can see with that bottom there as well, that one as well. I know how much money I need each month in retirement. Gets a bit more concrete when you get towards those older age groups. So when people, over 50, they maybe start to think about it more. Actually, the bills are going to cost this much. I have to get rid of this much debt before I retire. So it only then really is becoming more concrete for people. When we look below 50, less than 1 in 5 know how much money they need each month in retirement. They haven't thought about the actual practicalities of it on a monthly or basis. So, interesting data coming through there in terms of those attitudes towards retirement.
Yeah, and this sort of pensions are complicated. It's sort of a truism in everyone. Do people what are people really saying there, Niall? Is that an excuse that people use, I wonder, or it's a reason to disengage? And what they're really saying is pensions are boring / I'm contemplating my mortality. I don't want to think that far into
It's
the
a
future.
really emotional thing, I think, and I think particularly that, people don't like to think about that. And I think when you look at the behavioural science side of it as well, what the big thing we'll say there is that people really struggle to empathise with their future self. They just can't, it's like a different person. It's not them in that future. So again, there's lots of different reasons like that coming through as well, I think,
And are there ways that we can be helping with that? And it's kind of an impossible question in a way, isn't it? But what, I remember you saying to me before, 10 years ago, if you think about yourself 10 years ago, it seems like yesterday. You think about yourself in 10 years' time, it seems ages away. But are there, I wonder, just, are there other industries we can look to, or ideas where we, I know in the UK, for example, Hargreaves Lansdown had an advertising campaign, and it was kind of people looking in a mirror at an aged version of themselves, and these kinds of things. So it's just how we can be better at helping people get comfortable with their future version of themselves.
I think it's really trying to break it down, isn't it, and make it feel that it's. I think it's the same with lots of different things. I suppose people avoid negative financial information. They don't want to touch it. They people do crazy things, like they'll receive a bill and not open it and just leave it there for a while because they just don't want to look at it. So there is a bit of that coming through as well. So I think it's really trying to make it feel manageable and making it feel easy, that it's something that they chip away, and there's going to be greater value for this in the longer term as well.
There's something about explaining it in simple terms, isn't there? Definitely, getting that message across, and that example that you gave, looking at your future self, there's surely easy ways to get the message across, and opportunities for those working in the industry to do that with their existing clients or whatever, you know, just to get them engaged, or to have case studies of X, Y, and Z, you know, what worked, what didn't work, the scenarios that you could find yourself in, maybe, you know.
Yeah. And does the CFP like cover that? You know, are there any aspects?
Well, I think the CFP, I suppose, is specialist qualification. So as you know, all of our qualifications are building blocks on educational standards and areas of specialism. So certainly, yes, you're talking about financial planning, you're talking about looking at your future, the different kind of scenarios, the taxes, whatever it might be, your pension, what you need to be doing, and just putting a plan in place.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I mean, it's real life, it's practitioner, and what certainly feedback that we get time and time again from that qualification is that people can go to the lectures and they can put what they've learned from the lecture into practice the next day with their clients. So, you know, it's worthwhile, but like there's certainly something about getting the message out to the consumer, you know, putting that into practice and how you get them, you know, up to speed, and the importance of it. It's incredible, really, to think that there's that gap, you know, and that opportunity for our members.
Yeah, and I think as well, just the discussion, and I think that's why it's so important with pension awareness, even in workplaces, talking about it. It's the data earlier on, it clearly shows it isn't something that people are vocal about in workplaces and chatting to each other about. It's something that is, you know, it's about death. I don't want to maybe look at it, I don't want to talk about it much. So it's making it a more accessible discussion.
And for employers as well, like I know even from LIA's perspective, from the staff here, like every couple of years we do an AVC drive where you bring somebody in, you talk to them, the importance of it, you know, and like we've a lot of young staff, so it's important to kind of get that message across to them. I think we as employers need to be doing more as well, maybe, you know, to get that on the agenda.
So just move on to the next piece. So what we're going to look at now is obviously what's top of mind for a lot of people across the country, and the cost of living, and obviously that's having massive impacts in terms of how people are buying their food and the cost there, and fuel, and people taking less trips and stuff like that. But what about pensions and what's happening there? So again, we're looking at the cut of data here of those who have a pension product currently, and amongst those who currently have a pension, the increase in the cost of living has not really dramatically impacted retirement savings for the large majority. You know, over 2/3 have said that the cost of living is having no impact. So instead of perhaps taking money out of their pension or reducing their contributions, they're cutting elsewhere. What we're kind of seeing at the moment in terms of general buying behaviours, people are shaving quite a few places. They maybe had 4 you know, subscriptions to Netflix. Now they're going to go, maybe we'll only have 2. So the pension pot seems to be something that many people are just leaving alone for the moment. Now, this is right now. This, I think, another piece of important information is that people generally don't think this is going to end anytime soon. The cost of living is going to be something that's perhaps going to extend beyond. So it'll be interesting to see
what that looks like, whether that changes.
Exactly. But I suppose as we currently are now, you know, over 2/3 stating no impact. There are a few who've, you know, delayed, done a few things, reduced pension contributions, but really the large majority, no impact.
Yeah, I guess though on that slide, like Niall, there is sort of, if you toss up people who've either pushed out retirement, pushed out starting a pension, or stopped paying in, you've got kind of about 20% cumulatively there. So like, I agree, this is really heartening in the sense that most people are keeping the show on the road. But you know, those 1 in 5, like what I felt when I thought about that was like, you know, if you think back to the global financial crisis, and like, you know, for some people, you know, they never recovered financially from that. If that hit you at a particular point in life, you know, and it was too late to rebuild, or you didn't have that resilience, and you know, it's you know, everyone's talking about the cost of living in terms of, you know, bills day to day, but actually the long-term effect of the rises in 2022 in the cost of living are probably, this is the beginnings of it here, and this is something that will be playing out for that 20% in 10-20 years time.
Yes, yeah, no, absolutely. On the other side of the coin, then, those who currently do not have a pension, what has the cost of living, I suppose, increase impacted on their, you know, approach to retirement savings? What we see is that nearly 1/3 of those who do not have a pension currently feel that the increase in cost of living has delayed them in starting to save for retirement. So that thing that they were thinking I'll get to later is now later. It's further along.
You'd wonder were they ever going to do it, or would they have ever done it?
Yeah, I mean, even more than half of these people then, they've not started a pension in the good times, and they're not starting one now, right? So people like me are wasting our time engaging with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're difficult
Not to
group
crack,
to target because, as you mentioned, exactly. There are 1 in 10 who have said that, you know what, actually, I don't have a pension, but I'm actually going to push out my planned retirement date now. I'm going to have to perhaps work a bit longer than I did intend to in the future. So yeah, some differences there definitely come through between two of them. So let's talk about financial advisors now, and what are people looking for from a financial advisor, and what's important. As you can see, a lot of green here, which tends to mean there's a lot of things that are important. From being good value for money, find the best pension plan for my needs, that they save me money, provide me a peace of mind. You can kind of see there, well over 3/4 of people agreeing that all of these things are important. To have when they are considering using a financial advisor. So what we did, just to get a bit more granularity on this data, was we got them to rank, and this gives us what that forces them to do is trade off. What's more important is good value for money more important than finding the best pension plan for my needs, etc. So what we see when we look at the entire sample is that finding the best pension plans for my needs tends to be the one that people say is the most important. There's lots of other ones there too, that they save me money, they're good value for money as well, really important too, and provide me with peace of mind. That more emotional area as well coming through there is something that they're looking for from a financial advisor. So you're going to be fine if you stick to this. That supporting role nearly coming through there. There are differences though, and we're going to look at the differences across age in the next slide, but just looking at the differences between those people who don't have a pension currently and those who have a pension. So don't have a pension is in the red there, with any pension, the kind of the bluey green colour. So with those who don't have a pension, as you can see there, they feel that that when they're considering using a financial advisor, that they save me money is more important. They over-index there, right? So I don't have a pension, for example. I'm thinking, right, I go to a financial advisor because they will save me money. That's the motivation of someone who doesn't have a pension, the primary one. Where things such as find the best pension plan for needs, still important, but not as important. It's a bit lower down. Those who have a pension, though, who are on the other side of the fence, it's a little bit different. They're less sensitive to, I suppose, that they save me money. But they're more, I suppose, what they feel is more important is they find the best pension plan for my needs. So you can kind of see there's a difference there in terms of what they feel are the most important needs coming through there. And those who've actually, if you look on the far right there, those who are more active, so these people who've gone and actually sought out advice from a pension, on pension from a financial advisor, really strong over the index there in terms of find the best pension plan for my needs. That's very important to them. But also that they have a high level of technical and expert pension knowledge.
So it's really correlating that the need, like the more educated the consumer is about it, the more they're engaging in it.
Correct, and the more they value things such as technical knowledge, and actually, that pension plan might be a bit more expensive, but better. People who do not have a pension currently are more likely to be thinking through a financial lens of, I have X amount of money. Where on the other side of it, it's a bit more about the actual quality that you're getting from it. If that
so it's about getting to the people. To educate them.
Let's look at the age break in this, if we can, and this is quite interesting. So we've broken this down to 4 different age groups: 16 to 24, 25 to 34. We have 35 to 49, and we also have 50 to 64. So it's a few years before retirement. And there is a difference between how young people are motivated to use a financial advisor and those over 50, for example. So younger age cohorts are more likely to be motivated by a financial provider who can save them money around pension providers. You can see that really strong there for the 16 to 34 age cohort. 2/3 of them saying that's really important consideration when I'm picking a financial advisor. You kind of see how that dips then for age groups. So particularly when we get to the over 50 age cohort, only 1/3 of them are saying, that's the really important factor, that they save me money. What we're kind of seeing at that age, those 15 years before retirement, what becomes really important, it's find the best pension plans for my needs. So that more product focus, but also again coming through there quite strong is that they have the high level of technical knowledge and expertise for my pension, an expert pension knowledge. So that two things there, that's really interesting because it's 15 years that becomes more important. But it also shows you that those under 50 really are undervaluing that. They are more focused on the cost, they're more focused on the actual can they save me money, and they're undervaluing that high level of technical expertise of a pension advisor being able to,
how do you get that message across though, the quality, the importance of
Yeah, well, it's a funny one, isn't it? And like, we're getting some good questions across here. So, like, I'll say to folk, you know, keep sending questions, but I'm just going to ask some of them as we go. And I suppose, you know, perhaps like under the CPC anyway, we as advisors have an obligation to provide the best product for someone's needs, right? So that's kind of, as advisors, we probably know that, but the word isn't necessarily getting out there amongst the, as I say, the people that we do pensions on, you know. So I think that's something I'd certainly be really interested to explore. Is, you know, what do we think people mean when we say the best pension? What, you know, because that could be, the price is a part of best pension, but there's kind of a lot of different aspects, isn't there, in terms of like that, whether that's investment performance, ease of use, you know, all these kinds of things, you know. So I think that one, you know, although like you say they're more focused on the product or the result, they you know, that could mean different things to different people in terms of what good looks like. So that's probably one of the things that people I think are kind of looking to explore through the questions.
So look, just some concluding thoughts just to summarise kind of what we've gone through today. So starting off from the beginning, you know, over 2 in 5 do not have a pension, with lower pension holdings amongst females, social class C2DE, so the blue collar, and those living outside of Dublin, so it is a little lower. Half the population, 49%, would like to know more about pensions, but find it complicated to understand. And again, as I mentioned, those in full-time employment who currently do not have a pension, you know, nearly over 70% of them saying that they would like to know more, but do find it complicated. So perhaps work from organisations there. Just under 2 in 5 already know that they won't have sufficient money saved for retirement. So they've reached that point of going, actually, you know what, I'm in trouble here. I don't have enough money for retirement. With the same number, around 2 in 5, believing that they will need to work longer than intended due to an insufficient pension. Only 1 in 20 of those without a pension have ever discussed retirement options with their workplace. So again, it is an area that, as we talked about, isn't it? You know, let's talk about it. Let's make it something that's more accessible to employees and for them to talk about it. Even amongst those with the pension, attention to its performance is low. So the people who currently have them, only 1 in 5 of those with the pension have ever checked what funds their pension is invested in, and around the same as you're looking.
It's incredible though, if you had another savings product or whatever, that you'd be looking at its performance, and yet people aren't looking at their retirement plan.
Yeah, it's got to be right. I think there's a real sense that a pension, unlike your other assets, it's not sort of an asset with your name on the tin.
It's an ownership piece.
Of course it is, and like you can see in other jurisdictions as well, like you know, in the UK they've talked for years about a pensions dashboard where you could log in and see all your different pensions in a single place, you know, and the difficulty they've had of doing that. But it's any of these things that can kind of bring people closer to their money, and you know, there is, you know, it's surprising that our industry probably has got away with that for quite as long in a world where, you know, like you've got your Revolut in your pocket and all that sort of thing. So I think it's, you know, it would be easier for us to help people get to grips with their pension if they, you know, in general felt closer to it to begin with, right? And like it was just one more app on your phone or whatever.
Checking in on it or whatever.
Amongst those who do not, amongst those who have a pension, the increase in the cost of living has not impacted retirement savings for the large majority. Now, as Ray pointed out, there is, you know, that 20% who have done little things, and that the long-term impact absolutely of that. You know, will they go back to where they were before? That's another thing that people would have to do. People become used to putting the same amount, so you know, the longer term.
That's what the concern is about the people that don't bother putting anything in, that it's always long fingered. Then, you know, whereas if they've got in early doors, maybe they wouldn't be cutting back now, like they'd managed to. They managed to be able to do it. As I mentioned, however, nearly a third of those who do not have a pension feel that they that the increase in the cost of living has delayed them in starting to save for retirement. In terms of needs from a financial advisor, again, just to recap for pensions advice, those who have a pension are more concerned with the financial advisor finding the best pension for their needs, whereas saving money appears to be more important for those without a pension provider. So it's important just as our starting point when we are talking to people
about their pension. This
Yeah.
is the lens that they're looking through.
Yeah.
And younger age cohorts, just to build on that as well in terms of what they're looking from a financial advisor for pension advice, younger age cohorts are likely to be more motivated by a financial provider who can save them money around pension advice. The importance of technical knowledge appears to become more important for those over the
Yeah.
age of 50. And again, that could be they're looking into it more, they
Yeah.
realise actually this is a really important thing that I never considered.
Coming down the track.
Yeah. And again, that highlights perhaps that stuff is maybe a little undervalued by
Yeah.
those in younger age cohorts
Yeah.
in particular. So that's everything.
Great, really interesting and scary in some ways, but lots of opportunities as well, I would say, for you guys.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity, and I suppose there's enough guilt and worry going around in the Irish market, I think, when
Yeah.
it comes to pensions. So that's the whole thrust of this week, is to talk in a more positive way about this subject, both as a business opportunity
Yeah.
for us, an opportunity to for advisors like us to be out there and
Yeah.
proving our value and getting paid for it, frankly. But also to demystify it and reduce
Yeah.
some of that fear factor, and like you say, it's about making it feel a bit more manageable, perhaps. It can that's where value lies for
I think
both
we've more to do
advisor
in the
and customer.
school curriculum as well, though, and certainly in LIA we're trying to, get into that space, like, of educating the kids in secondary schools, or getting some of our programs are going into some of the colleges as well, but just educating them about basic financial advice. Understanding the terminology. I just think we need to be doing more.
I think part of it as well is how financial advisors, the language you use.
Yeah.
That's all really important. That when people think about the acronyms that are used, can scare people.
Yeah.
And it's like, for example, if you look at a document, an insurance document, and you read the first line, you go, oh, that's not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's that instinctive reaction, oh, that's not for me.
Yeah.
And it's about making it feel more accessible.
Yeah.
I think that's a really key part of it.
Yeah.
And in order to just increase that encouragement as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. And to kind of be realistic with people as well in terms of how much you're investing is the likely return going to be. I think people have as well an unrealistic expectation of what their pension is going to deliver.
Yeah. I think there's two sides to it. There's there's this kind of school engagement stuff is really useful in terms of confidence with money generally. Like in reality, I suppose, you're not really going to think deeply about a mortgage, how it all works until you actually need one. But it's when that happens.
Yeah.
Are you confident asking the questions, and then you go into another layer of detail kind of at those points in life. We've got a couple more questions here, so I'm just gonna look at them. One is a simple one that I can probably manage myself, which is will the recording of the presentation and the slides be available? So we'll be putting a recording up on the Pensions Awareness Week YouTube channel in a couple of days, so that'll be coming through once our whizzy video editors have done their work. There's another more kind of subject matter based question here, which is, from a practitioner's perspective, do you feel there's equal business growth potential in the new to pension consumer, so those who've not started or the younger age cohort perhaps, and those who are approaching retirement and about to access their pensions pot? So I guess, Niall, does the data show us anything there, or is there? I know I'm lobbing that at you without any warning, but is there anything in the data that suggests, one of the things I got from the people who've not started is that we could very well be, our words are falling on deaf ears, and so maybe the answer is actually follow the money, and those approaching retirement that's where the business is. Is there any indication through the data? Would you care to speculate?
In terms of where the higher level of potential is? Yeah, I think it's, I think there's the size of the pot is probably bigger at the younger age cohorts. You have more people who are in that age group. And who are, absolutely. I think that people are, as you saw, they're open to the advice. They just find it complicated. I think that it comes down to motivation as well. As they're reaching that 50 age group, there is that increased motivation to engage with it. So they're likely to be more proactive with this. I suppose as financial advisors, we're probably going to have to work a bit harder. With the younger age groups in terms of bringing them up to speed, but also getting them to make that first step and actually engage with it too. So, it's a difficult question to say where the most potential is. I think you're going to have more proactivity from the over 50s, less proactivity from under that in terms of the pension product. But there's still such a valuable group to look at because obviously
it's a big market to tap,
and
like maybe a bit more creativity in terms of how you get in there, how you communicate with them, what the messaging is.
Absolutely, and they're not shut off the pensions.
No,
it's they're just either undervaluing it, they have their head in the sand a little bit. They're I'll worry about that later. So in terms of ourselves, there's probably more more legwork we have to do to get them to think about that long term and to perspective on things. But also to make it feel like it's successful for them to make those first steps. So probably low hanging fruit as you're over 50s. But under that there's a lot of potential, I think, as well.
Yeah, and it might be more about, there's plenty to be had in either one, but it's about how you engage with that category based on some of the data.
And you have to engage them differently. I think that's what this
absolutely.
tells us,
The same message won't do the same thing.
It's a different proposition, and I think that's the key thing. That there's a tailored approach you need.
And like if you get the younger guys as well, there's other opportunities with the younger guys in terms of products, outside of pensions and stuff like that. You could be, leaning into as well.
Yeah.
What about, can I just ask, sorry, and I should have asked this beforehand, the actual findings of the research now, where is that going to be?
Well, I guess this is part of Pensions Awareness Week, right? We're in the business of getting information out there to benefit all the advisory community and consumers as a whole. So like there's heaps of information at this stage on the Pensions Awareness Week.ie website. Based on not just this year's content, but the previous years we've run it. So that's the kind of repository which we're building up over the years, and it's just this ever broadening conversation about pensions. And it's all in there, from pensions and going through divorce to doing your AVCs if you're a public servant and whatnot. So all of these kind of more specialist topics, you'll find a 15-minute with a conversation with an expert there now. So
so it's worthwhile visiting for that.
Definitely say have a peek at the website. And that's where we hope to kind of build and grow both this year and the years that follow. Yeah,
great initiative. Have we any more questions?
I think we're in good shape there. So that's I've been chipping in along the way, I suppose, with people's questions. So I think we're at this point. This is the concluding event of Pensions Awareness Week. To my advisor colleagues, I say thank you for joining, and trouser that hour of CPD with the number that's on your screen just now. It'll save you scrambling around after Christmas. And to others who've joined, I hope you found it useful. Thanks for joining this and the other events through Pensions Awareness Week. The website has lots of details on the other conversations we've had. There's loads of information to download. There are one-to-one consultations you can book with my colleagues at Moneycube.ie. And we'll just say thank you for joining, and see you next year.
Thanks.